원상있는 고양이 제니예요. 오늘은 해리포터 2권 챕터 12였는데요. Apologies Potion에서 어제 읽던 거 마저 읽어보도록 할게요. 냥! Ginny didn't find it amusing either. Oh, don't! She wailed. Every time Fred asked Harry loudly who he was planning to attack next, or George pretended to ward Harry off with a large clove of garlic when they met. Harry didn't mind. It made him feel better that Fred and George at least thought the idea of his being Slytherin's heir was quite ludicrous. But the Antons seemed to be aggravating Draco Malfoy, who looked increasingly sour each time he saw their net. It's because he's bursting to say it's really him, said Ron knowingly. You know how he hates setting and bidding in anything, and you're getting all the credit for his dirty work. Not for long, said Hermione in a satisfied tone. With Apologies Potion nearly ready, we'll be getting a truther getting anything now. At last the term ended, and the silence deep as the snow on the glass descended on the castle. Harry found it peaceful rather than gloomy, enjoying the fact that he, Hermione, and the Weasleys had the run of Gryffindor Tower, which meant they could play exploding sack loudly without bothering anyone, and practice dueling in private. Fred, George, and Ginny had chosen to stay at school rather than visit Phil in Egypt with Mr. and Mrs. Weasley. Percy, who disapproved what they termed their childish behavior, didn't spend much time in the Gryffindor common room. He had already told them pompously that he was only staying over Christmas because he was duty as a prefect to support the teachers during this troubled time. Christmas morning dawned, cold and light. Harry and Ron, the only ones left in their dormitory, were woken very early by Hermione, who burst in, fully dressed and carrying presents for them both. "Wake up!" she said loudly, pulling back the curtains of the window. "Hermione, you're not supposed to be in here," said Ron, shielding his eyes against the light. "Merry Christmas to you too," said Hermione, throwing his present. "I've been up for nearly an hour, adding more lessons to the potions." "It's ready." Harry sat up, suddenly wide awake. "You saw?" "Positive," said Hermione, scraping Spencer the wet so she could sit down on the end of the four-poster. "If you're going to do it, I say it should be tonight." At that moment, Hedwig swept into the room, carrying a very small package in her beak. "Hello," said Harry happily, as she landed on his bed. "You're speaking to me again?" She nibbled his ear in an affectionate little way, which was a far better present than the one she had brought. It turned out to be Dursley's. They sent Harry a toothpick, and a note telling him to find out whether he'd be able to save Hogwarts for the summer holidays too. The rest of Harry's Christmas present was far more satisfactory. Hagrid had sent him a large tin of treacle fudge, which Harry decided to soften by the fire before he did it. Flying with the Cannons, a book of interesting facts about his favorite Quidditch team. And Hermione got it a luxury eagle feather quill. Harry opened the last present to find a new hand-knitted jumper from Mrs. Weasley and a large plum cake. He put up her card with a fresh surge of guilt, thinking about Mr. Weasley's car, which hadn't been seen since his crush with the Whimpering Willow, and about the rule breaking he and Ron were planning next. No one, not even someone dreading taking Polyjuice potions later, could fail to enjoy Christmas dinner of Hogwarts. The Great Hall looked magnificent. Not only were there a dozen frost-covered Christmas trees of thick streamers of holly and mistletoe crisscrossing the ceiling, but enchanted snow was falling, warm and dry from the ceiling. And Buller led them with the carols, Hagrid booming more and more loudly, and every goblet eggnog he consumed. Percy, who hadn't noticed the Fred had been rich his prefect badge, so that it now read Pinhead, kept asking them all whether vinegar enough. Harry didn't even care that Draco Malfoy was making loud, smiled remarks about his new jumper from the Slytherin table. With a bit of luck, Malfoy would be getting his come up in a few hours' time. Harry and Ron had barely finished their helpings for Christmas pudding when Hermione ushered them out of the hall to find them as their plans to evening. "We still need a bit of the people you're changing into," said Hermione matter-of-factly, as though she was summoning into a supermarket to washing powder. "And obviously, it couldn't be best if you could wear something to Crabbe and Goyle's. They're Malfoy's best friends if you tell them anything. And we also need to make sure the real Crabbe and Goyle can't burst in as swaggering and interrogating." "I've got it all over time," she went on smoothly, ignoring Harry and Ron's stupefied faces. She held up 2 plum chocolate cakes. "I filled these with the simple sleeping drops. All you have to do is make sure Crabbe and Goyle find them. You know how greedy they are they're about to eat them. Once they're asleep, pull out a few of their hairs and hide them in a broom cupboard." Harry and Ron looked incredulously at each other. "Hermione, I don't think that could go seriously wrong." But Hermione had a steely glint in her eye, not unlike the one Professor McGonagall sometimes had. "Potion will be useless without Crabbe and Goyle's hair," she said sternly. "You do want to expect Malfoy, don't you?" "Oh, all right," said Harry. "But what about you? Whose hair are you ripping at?" "I've already got mine," said Hermione brightly, pulling a tiny bottle out of his pocket and showing them the single hair inside it. "Remember Mr. Bulstrode wrestling with me with a drilling club? She left this on my rose when she was trying to strangle me. And she's gone home for Christmas, so I just have to tell the Slytherins I decided to come back." When Hermione bustled up to check on the apology potion again, Ron turned to Harry with a doom-laden expression. "Have you ever heard of the plan where so many things could go wrong?" That's to Harry and Ron to actual astonishment. Stage 1 of the operation went just as smoothly as Hermione had said. They lurked in the deserted entrance hall after Christmas tea, waiting for Crabbe and Goyle, who would remain in the room at the Slytherin table, shoveling down 4 helpings of trifles. Harry had put the chocolate cakes on the end of the finishers. When they spotted Crabbe and Goyle coming out of the great hall, Harry and Ron hid quickly behind a suit of armor next to the front door. "How thick can you get?" Ron whispered ecstatically, as Crabbe gleefully pointed out the cakes to Goyle and grabbed them. Grinning stupidly, they stuffed the cakes whole into their large mouths. For a moment, both of them chewed greedily, looks of triumph on their faces. Then, without the smallest change of expression, They both keeled over backwards onto the floor. Much the most difficultly, the hiding in the cupboard across the hall. Once they were safely stowed on the best of backing the mobs, Harry lengthened up the cover of the bristles that covered Goyle's forehead, and Ron pulled off several of Crab's hairs. Also, their shoes, their own, were far too small for Crab and Goyle-sized feet. Then, still stunned at what they had just done, they sprinted up to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. They could hardly see it for the thick black smoke issuing from the cubicle in which Hermione was darling at the cauldron. Pulling their robes up in their faces, Harry and Ron knocked softly in the door. "Hermione!" They heard the scrape of the lock, and Hermione emerged, shiny-faced and looking anxious. Behind her, they heard the gloop, gloop of the bubbling, trickle fake unconscious. 3 glass tumblers were ready in the toilet seat. "Did you get them?" said Hermione, asked breathlessly. Harry showed her Goyle's hair. "Good, and I stick these their robes out of the laundry," Hermione said, pulling up a small sack. "You'll need bigger sizes once you're Crabbe and Goyle." In the cauldron, close up, the potion looked like thick, dark mud, bubbling sluggishly. "I'm sure I've done everything right," said Hermione, nervously reading the script page of Most Potent Potions. "It looks like the book says you should. Once we've drunk it, we'll have it exactly an hour before we change back into ourselves." "Now what?" Ron whispered. "We separate it into 3 glasses and add the hairs." Hermione laid in the large dollops of the potion into each of the glasses. Then, her hand trembling, she shook Miss Bolster's hair out of his bucket into the first glass. The potion hissed loudly like a boiling kettle and frothed madly. A second later, it had turned a sick sort of yellow. "Ugh, as is a Millicent Bulstrode," said Ron, eyeing it with loathing, betting taste is disgusting. "Add yours then," said Hermione. Harry dropped Goyle's hair into the little glass, and Ron poured Crab's into the last one. Both glasses hissed and frothed. Goyle's turned a khaki color at the bogey, Crab's a dark, murky brown. "Hang on," said Harry, hurrying and Hermione reached for the glasses. "We'd better not all drink in here. Once we turn into Crabbe and Goyle, we won't fit. And Millicent Blows are no pixie." Good thinking, the door. We pressed separate cubicles. Careful not to spill a drop of his Polish potion, Harry slipped into the middle cubicle. "Ready?" he called. "Ready?" came Ron and Hermione's voices. 1, 2, 3. Pinching his nose, Harry drank the potion down in 2 large gulps. "It tastes like overcooked cabbage." Immediately, his inside started writhing, as though he just let on live snakes. Doubled up, he wondered whether he was going to be sick. Then a burning sensation spread rapidly from his stomach to the very ends of the fingers and toes. Next, bringing him gasping forth, came a horrible melting feeling, as the skin all over his body bubbled like hot wax, and before his eyes his hands began to grow. The fingers thickened, and the nails broadened, and the knuckles were bulging like bullets. His shoulders stretched painfully, and the prickling on his forehead told him that hair was creeping down towards his eyebrows. His robes ripped as his dress suspended like a barrel bursting his hoops. His feet were ugly and shoes 4 sizes too small. As suddenly as he could start it, everything stopped. Harry lay face down on the cold stone floor, hissing to Myrtle's gurgling the whistling in the end of the toilet. With difficulty, he kicked off his shoes and stood up. So this what it felt like, being Goyle. His large hand trembling. He pulled up his old robes, which were hanging a foot about his ankles, pulled on the spare ones, and laced up Goyle's boat-like shoes. He reached up to brush his hair out of his eyes, and met only the short growth of wiry bristles low on his forehead. Then he realized that his glasses were clouding his eyes, because Goyle obviously didn't need them. He took them off and called, "Are you two okay?" Goyle's low raps of the voice issued from his mouth. 재밌게 들으셨다면 구독과 좋아요 꾹꾹 눌러주시고 다음 영상에서 만나요. 안녕!